Hey everyone, Patient Zero here bringing you some more Zombie Commission report. Today I have some apocalypse boot camp for you. We're going to talk about some survival stuff. But before I get into that, if you are interested in supporting this show, either by becoming a patron or by advertising your product or services to our listeners, head on over to our Patreon page, patreon.com/ZCR podcast. That's patreon.com/ZCR podcast. Thank you for any support you give us in advance. That said, let's move on with the show.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
The zombies are taking over.
He's been bitten! You know what that means? She's gonna turn into one of them! You fool! You're feeding him human brains! You're making him strong!
Every dead body that is not exterminated becomes one of them. It gets up and kills. The people it kills get up and kill.
In those moments when you're not sure the undead are really dead, don't get all stingy with your bullets.
Who died and made you fucking king of the zombies?
They are driven by the basest of impulses, the most basic of needs. The need to feed.
Kill the brain, and you kill the ghoul.
I'd like to have a calm discussion on this topic. You think we can manage that?
All right, everyone. So just some couple updates. I'm sticking with the new format that I've laid out for the show, where I post 2 or maybe 3 installments of the show every week. I know I've only done one other installment like this, but I hope you're enjoying it. It's a much shorter listen, so if you have 15 minutes, it's easy to just pop it on and listen to it real quick. Also, my New Year's resolutions were to get in shape, to quit smoking, and to improve the show. I'm hoping that the new segments are helping to improve the show. And as for getting in shape, I downloaded the Zombie Run app, so I'm getting in some cardio exercise, running, walking, everything like that. I've also started doing some anaerobic exercises, push-ups, crunches, sit-ups, everything like that on days like today where it's just windy as all hell outside. And the quitting smoking, I wanted to quit all at once, but the demon of nicotine is strong, so I'm cutting back slowly. I have cut back significantly, and if you smoke, you should definitely try to give it up also. Not going to be preachy about it, just saying. Just saying. Give it up. So, let's do some Apocalypse Boot Camp. This segment, what's in your pockets? In the first Apocalypse Boot Camps I did, I talked about different types of zombies, whether or not they could exist, and whether or not they could go pandemic. Now, while it is fun to speculate on an actual zombie apocalypse, I'm going to start talking more about actual survival in these segments. So get ready for some information that could save your ass one day. You know, people look at preppers like they're fucking crazy. Sure, they believe a plague will sweep the world and economic collapse will lead to complete social downfall, or that an asteroid striking Earth will cause humanity's near extinction. But preppers look at anyone who doesn't prep as dumb as shit. After all, non-preppers aren't ready and may not even know how to improvise a shelter, purify water for drinking, or survive even if the fucking electricity goes out for a couple weeks. Now, when you boil it down to either being fucking crazy or dumb as shit, I'd much rather be fucking crazy. I mean, you'll only be crazy until something you know or something you've prepared for becomes useful. But if something really does go wrong and you don't know how to deal with it or aren't prepared, you stay dumb as shit. You remember when Katrina hit Louisiana? It wasn't just the storm that killed the 1,577 people in that state, and 135 people remain missing to this day. The aftermath, flooding, disease, hunger, thirst, exposure, crime, and so many other things killed plenty of people as well. You have to ask yourself two questions in light of that. First, how many people that managed to survive had prepared for it? And second, how many people prepare for it there now? Don't think it won't happen to you. 2 weeks ago, I was listening to a podcast, ZPOC Nation, another great zombie survival podcast, and you should definitely check it out. The subject was winter survival. Mad Mock, the host over on that show, was talking about the people who recently died in the massive snowstorm New York received and what they could have done to stay alive. And he relayed a story about himself being stranded in a car during the winter. Wouldn't you know it, I was listening to the episode in a freezing-ass car with next to no gas in it. So a lot of what he said really hit home. My situation was nowhere near a survival scenario. After all, I was in a parking lot in the middle of the day with plenty of open stores around me, but my car is in bad need of service, and in the area where I live and the places I travel to, I could easily have broken down 20 miles from any civilization at all. Plus, I don't have AAA, which Mad Mock did have, but it was of no use to him in this case. And I don't have the money to afford a tow or roadside assistance of any kind. What if that is what had happened to me? In the case of Katrina and the mountain of snow that fell on New York not too long ago, these things were predicted. People that don't usually prepare for things had time to run to the grocery store for food and water, to stock up on batteries, or buy a heavier coat, or whatever the fuck else they needed. But what about the things that happen unexpectedly? And unexpected things happen every day. They may not happen to you every day, but they happen all over every day. In other words, we should always expect the unexpected. It's an old cliche saying, but it's true. Excuse me. And when something unexpected happens that throws you into a survival scenario, chances are you aren't going to have anything to rely on except for the things that you have on you. In the world of survival, this is referred to as your everyday carry or your EDC. This is a great place to start prepping because a lot of this stuff is just practical and some of it you may already carry. We're going to start with your clothing. I hope you're wearing clothing out every day. But when you do, be sure, when you do, I hope you wear it all the time. Believe me, I do. But when you get dressed, be sure you check the day's forecast and dress for the weather. I can't count the number of times I've seen some dumb asshole walking down the street in 20 degrees wearing shorts and a t-shirt. As a matter of fact, this past week, a couple days ago, it was 9 fucking degrees Fahrenheit in my area. I stopped into Sheetz to get a coffee, and dude walks in wearing a pair of cargo shorts. You know what? Who gives a shit if you think -9 ball shriveling degrees is warm. It is not going to stop you from dying of exposure in as little as 3 hours. If it's going to be cold, layer up, and if it's going to be hot as hell, thin layers of light clothing. Also, make sure your shoes are in good condition. Getting water up into your feet and shit like that, walking around in wet socks and everything, you're going to lead to infections, fungal infections, things like that. Also, wear hats, wear gloves, wear scarves, wear face masks, wear anything you have to keep yourself warm. If it's going to rain, have one of those little ponchos in a bag with you. This is not fucking rocket science. Next, have your cell phone. Here, most of you are saying, when do I not have my cell phone? The truth is, you don't. You have a little device that allows you to make calls and play fucking Candy Crush or Angry Birds, send text messages and watch cat videos on YouTube, or check email while you take a fucking selfie. How about you download some useful shit to your phone? A GPS app that includes directions for walking, a compass, a survival guide, a first aid guide. There are tons of apps out there that will turn your telephone into an invaluable survival tool. In fact, I might devote an entire Apocalypse boot camp to survival apps down the road. So yeah, keep your ear holes open for that one. See, have you ever found yourself fumbling around in the dark trying to find something? How much easier would it be with a flashlight? It's an ingenious fucking invention that hardly anyone has. Finding a small, inexpensive flashlight to carry with you at all times is easier than you think. I just picked up a new one a week ago. It's small enough to fit in my pocket, has a clip to hang from my belt or from my pocket, has an emergency beacon flashing mode to signal for help. It's the brightest flashlight I've ever owned. It's made out of a sturdy metal, and it cost me less than $20. How often do I use it? At least once per day. I live in an apartment complex. I have dogs. I walk the dogs. Other people walk their dogs. I'm the only one who picks up the shit. I don't understand why, but if I didn't have that flashlight, I can almost guarantee you I would step in dog shit at least once a week. Speaking of light, if cavemen never discovered how to make fire, we may not have existed today. Nowadays, you can carry fire around in your pocket. Get a lighter, even if you don't smoke, which you should. Quit if you do. Quit. I'm not being preachy. Quit smoking. There are many uses for lighters, including the obvious starting a fire, to stay warm, cook food, boil water, and ward off animals. A small emergency light source is another good use for it. You can also use them to sterilize needles and blades in case you need to use them to perform some sort of first aid. And there are tons of other crap you can do for them. Or do with them, not for them. I found Bic and Zippo lighters to be the most dependable. They do have those little butane lighters that are supposed to be that are windproof out. I've never used one, but I've heard great things about them. Here's a good one. Have you ever asked someone for the time and then watched them pull out their cell phone? What if their cell phone battery had died? Long after your phone is showing a useless black screen, a watch will keep going. Not only will you get the benefit of always knowing the time, which is going to be important if you're walking so you know around what time the sun's going to set, how much time you have left to walk, things like that. But some watches even come with features like a compass to help guide your way. Phases of the moon, so you know how much light you will have at night. A barometer, so you know if pressure's dropping, and things like that. An alarm, so you don't sleep. or so you don't oversleep, a stopwatch so you can time how long it takes to do things, and the list goes on. I prefer analog watches also with glass coverings over the face. Why? Because if you really need to, that glass can be removed and used to start a fire using the sun's light. We've seen images of people, like lighting ants on fire with a magnifying glass. It is possible to start a fire with glass and sunlight. Practice it. It would be a useful skill to have. Is someone giving you directions? Maybe you're making notes on landmarks so you don't get lost. Most people use their phones for this now. But again, once the battery dies, the phone and all the information it holds is useless. Carrying around a pen and a small pad of paper solves this problem instantly. And I would even suggest getting some of the waterproof pens and paper that are out there. They would be well worth the money. And speaking of money, you should have some with you. And not the kind that you can just, hey, I like that, I want it. No, this is emergency money that you use in case of emergency only. I suggest at least $50, and this amount should be enough to buy you some food or water if you need it, get a hotel room for the night, buy a couple of extra supplies, or something to that nature. Note this extra $50 should be in cash, since everywhere accepts it as a form of payment. Keep it separate from your everyday money so you don't spend it, and carefully consider each purchase you make with it. Who knows when you're going to need a can opener, a small blade, scissors, or a screwdriver. You can carry all of these tools with you and more in one. Get yourself a reliable multi-tool from Leatherman or someone like that. If you do, you'll have everything from pliers to a Phillips head screwdriver to a nail file. You never know when these little tiny tools will come in handy. So, that multi-tool might have one or two small knives on it. However, it is important to have a folding knife on you as well. One that is larger than the multi-tool blades. A larger folding knife is more, or a larger folding knife in your pocket will take care of the larger cutting jobs. Currently, I am carrying a CRKT. It's sturdily constructed, completely out of metal, and it's very comfortable to hold. Plus, the handle is textured, so even if it gets wet, it's not going to slip out of my hands at all. Many other podcasts mention having a handgun on you at all times. I'm going to save that as a subject for a later segment of Apocalypse Boot Camp, because that one needs to be talked about. So, that's our show. If you liked it, follow us on Twitter, twitter.com/ZCR Podcast. Subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/ZCR Podcast. And you can support the show on Patreon, patreon.com/ZCR Podcast. That's patreon.com/ZCR Podcast. Until next time, I'm Patient Zero reminding you, if it doesn't have zombies, it doesn't have brains.